那的 Indie 的 Iain Garner 来跟大家分享一下，说关于开发、行销还有整个宣传规划的时程上面要注意的一些事项，然后他遇过的一些问题。那等一下的演讲，因为全部都是用英文进行，所以如果有特定的需求的时候，我会就是看状况会做一点翻译这样，然后或者是说等一下大家有什么问题想要提问的话呢，就是可以直接就是举手提问，然后你用中文讲，那我可以用就是再翻成英文这样。好，那我们就请掌声欢迎 Iain。
Hey everyone. So yeah, just before we start, I just want to apologise because I'm very tired. We just launched a game this week, so yes, if I seem a little bit dead, it's because I am. Okay. But let's commence. So who am I? I'm Iain. Many of you look familiar. I think I saw you last time. So you may know me. I'm the co-founder of another indie, and I'm the person who does all the project management of our titles. I'm okay at it. I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm good at it. And what I want to talk about today is time management. Woo! Yeah. Super exciting stuff. And why do I want to talk about time management? Well, the reason why I want to talk about time management is very simple. Because people keep fucking it up. It's becoming very obvious to me that a lot of indie developers, smaller first-time developers, are struggling to understand the needs and necessities that come about not just making a game, but making a successful game. And those are two very different things. You can make a very good game and still fail. In fact, you probably will make a very good game and still fail. That's the situation in 2018. So what you need to be doing is figuring out how you can maximize your chances of success. And time management is incredibly important because every week wasted is money that you are spending. It's time that you cannot get back, okay? So that is what I want to do. I want to talk to you about that today and kind of tell you a little bit about how we do it and sort of point out some of the things that I see developers doing that they should not be doing, okay? And just for a clarification, nobody knows what they're doing. I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm just doing my best, but I've been doing it for a long time now, so I have some understanding of it that might be different from yours. So, if what I say does not apply to you, that's fine. And if you have any questions or any disagreements with me, please let me know, because I want to hear from people who tell me I'm a lying bullshitter, okay? That's totally fine. So, I've broken it down into 3 categories, 3 things that I think that you guys need to be focusing on. Do any of you have any idea what my 3 categories are? Come on, it's a test. If you fail, terrible. Come on, give me a category.
Launching time.
Launching time? Partially. So 3 categories. The first one is, kind of like what you were saying, developing your game, right? So the first thing that you're actually, most of you are developers, right? Yes? No? I mean, if you're not, you're in the wrong room. Somebody said, I'm here for Pokemon Go. But yeah, the first thing that you guys are probably focusing on is developing your game, which is very understandable. It's a very important part of the process. But there are 2 other things that I think are equally important, and I want to emphasize this, equally important as to actually developing the game in terms of making a successful game. First one is building your community. This is really hard, and we'll talk about how to do this later on, but a lot of developers are not doing this. And by building your community, I do not mean having a Facebook account and uploading a picture once a week. That is not building a community, that is having a Facebook account. And I don't know how many of you check your Facebooks. I guess it's not many, because Facebook does not seem to be doing a good job in terms of retention and in terms of engagement and things like that. So if your community is based around exclusively something like Facebook, you're probably going to run into problems. We use Discord. Do any of you use Discord?
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing, right? Like, with Discord, you can do pretty much anything that you can imagine doing. You can set up bots to do all sorts of the work for you, and you can have a really, really, really solid community right from the word go. You can customize it to do what you want. We started our Discord about a year and a half ago. We now have 3,000 people in our Discord, and that's 3,000 active members, because we prune inactive members. Okay? So even for a really small, tiny publisher like us, to have 3,000 people signal boosting your projects, it's absolutely incredible. We get more out of our Discord than we do out of anything else we do. So really look into that. And the other one is, of course, marketing. Both traditional marketing and modern marketing. Getting in touch with press, getting your game out there, getting eyeballs on your game, and also getting influencers. You know, the streamers, the Twitter people, the Billy, Panda TV, Weibo, all of these lovely, lovely people that we have to work with these days, and getting them interested and getting them kind of connected to your game and your project. So those are the three things that I think you guys all need to be focusing on, and that you all need to have a plan for. You all need to be scheduling for. You can't have it that, oh, I will finish my game and then I will start this. It's almost impossible unless you want to spend 1 year sitting on top of a game, okay? So you need to be linking all of these things up together, which means this all needs to be happening simultaneously. So while you are developing your game, you need to be managing all of these different things. Hawarma. So easy, so easy. So, here's a little bit of what I think you need to have on your launch. And bear in mind, all of the advice I'm giving you right now is very, very, very generic. Every game is completely different and will have different ideas, but this is kind of a rough guide of what you need to have. So you need a strong community. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Discord, all helpful. A press kit sent out in advance, You cannot send your game to media and give them 1 week to play your game and expect them to write about your game. It's not enough time. And I see this all the time. People saying, oh, I'm launching my game next week. Cool. Have you sent out the press kits? Nah, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Because in 2018, everybody's inbox is full. So you need to give them as much time as possible. I try to give a minimum of 6 weeks, which means that the game has to be finished, the game has to be uploaded, the game has to be playable, and it needs to be distributable 6 weeks before I actually launch it, which is a month and a half early. So when you put that in the grand scheme of things, it becomes a big difference, a big change. And as well as just the game in your press kit, you're going to want to have a trailer, and those are fun. Have you guys made trailers yet? Yeah, that's going to be fun. Trailers are great. Screenshots, GIFs, and of course you're going to want to have an actual press release, which needs to be in very good English, or very good Chinese, or Japanese, or Russian, or whichever language you're pitching it in. It's a lot of work. It's not just a case of finishing the game and then shipping it anymore. Once upon a time, you could put your game on Steam and it would sell. We don't live in that world anymore. And if you're a mobile developer, as I think most of you are, it's even harder. You know, I come from a PC and console space, which is difficult. For those of you who are working in mobile, God bless you. God bless you. You also need to have you also need to have had a media presence before you launch your game. launching your game without any kind of previews or any kind of news is really, really dangerous. People aren't aware of your brand. So before you launch your game, figure out like, okay, when can I give people a demo? When can I give people a preview? When do I want to schedule this in? Is it even possible? And you want to make sure that you are doing a good job on influencer outreach and connections. Influencers are so important these days. You want to make sure that the Twitch people, the YouTube people, the Bilibili people, Panda TV people, all of these people from all over the world have access to your game, okay? If they don't, they aren't going to come knocking on your door. Unless you've done an amazing job showcasing and things like that. But showcasing is hard because we live in Taiwan, and in order to showcase effectively, you need to go to America. And that shit is expensive. So, it's tough. It's tough. So, how do I do this? So, when I get a game, the first thing that I do is I break it down into milestones. Do you know what a milestone is? Is that a common term? Cool. So I break it down into milestones. So I sit down with the 3 pillars and I figure out the milestones for each game. Like, what do I need to do and when do I need to do it? Okay? And then once I have all the milestones, I put them together. Okay? So let's have a look at some of these milestones. I am not a developer. So my development milestones are purely from the outside. So developers among you are probably looking at my milestones going, but from the outside, these are the ones that matter to me when it comes to selling your game, okay? So the first thing you're going to want to get is the cross-slice. You know what a cross-slice is? It's a version of your game that allows people to understand what your game is. It does not necessarily need to be a full demo. It can be 5 minutes long. It's designed to give people like me and other industry people a good idea of what your game is, okay? Do you remember PT? Silent Hill PT? Excellent example of a cross-slice. You know the game was not going to be like that, but you play that and you know exactly what they are aiming for. A playable demo. This is usually number 2, and this can be useful for a number of things. It can be useful for building a community. It can be useful for getting press involved. Anything. Number 3, your first pass. You have a finished version of the game. It's probably got problems. It's probably got bugs. It's probably got text issues. It's probably got missing pieces. But I can play it beginning to end. Polished version for testing. This is my favorite one because it means we're nearly there. And then the final version, the one that we launch. But of course, in development these days, there's also 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 with patches and updates and content and DLC and all this other stuff. But these are the ones that you kind of need to be scheduling for right now. So if you have a game under development and you have no idea when these things are coming, you need to sit down and look at your process and figure it out, okay? Because without these dates, it's impossible to do anything else. Until you have a rough idea of when this will happen, nothing else will work. Because the development thing is the thing in the middle. Everything else is connected to it. So if this thing is, it's a big problem. So, marketing milestones. Now this is where this is where I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is how we break it down, basically. We do a launch announcement, which is basically saying, hey, look, this game exists, woo! It has a trailer, a press release, and sometimes, but not always, a demo, okay? Sometimes it just has the trailer and the press release. So for Sinner, when we first announced Sinner, we did not release a demo at that time. So number 2, you can skip if you don't have a demo at this time. So you release this to press and you hope that you get some interest, okay? If you do not get interest, you need to kind of look at why. Is your game too similar to things on the market? Is your pitching not correct? How can you make it more interesting? This is actually a great time to really reevaluate if you have done something wrong. So for example, with Sinner, did any of you guys see Sinner? We launched it this week, so just say yes, we saw it. Okay? So we launched Sinner this week, and our launch announcement was really, really successful because loads of people wrote about it and loads of people saw it. But it was really unsuccessful for a different reason. We did not do our messaging well enough. So people saw the game, they said, that looks fucking cool, but they did not realize what the game was. They got their own idea that it was this big action RPG, and it wasn't. It was a small boss battler. So suddenly, we were in a situation where we had to fight against the expectations of the people who had seen the trailer. And that's a dangerous position to put yourself in. So make sure that you get your messaging on point as well. So we're all learning, follow up. If you send out a press release and people don't cover your game, give it a couple of weeks and then ask, hey, I sent you a press release, I know you didn't cover it, can you tell me why? You will probably only get 1, 2, 3 responses, but you will get some. And those responses will be incredibly useful. If they did cover your game, you want to message them and say, hey, thanks for covering my game, and give them more meat. So for example, what we did when Sinner got picked up by a lot of press, is we then started pitching to them with other ideas. So we're like, hey, by the way, did you know that Sinner was developed in China by AAA indie devs who have decided, AAA developers who've gone indie? How cool is that? They're like, oh, yeah, that is cool, yeah. And suddenly, we had a few articles being written about this kind of story of these developers from Shanghai who got together and, you know, a real kind of Robin Hood, woohoo, story. Great, excellent branding, okay? So, what is interesting or exciting about, not just about your game, but about you? What story are you trying to tell for your companies? Because remember, if you're making a game, it's not just about that game, it's also about your next game, and the game after that, and the game after that. So you want to be building up this narrative about who you are. If you want the perfect example of this, look at Devolver Digital. They did an amazing job of creating a brand for themselves as these cheeky, rude, naughty games publishers. And they've maintained that brand for nearly 10 years now, and it's done very well for them. So think about that. How are you positioning yourself, and how are you making yourself stand out, not just your game? And the next step is the launch date announcement. So the first thing you want to do is say, hey, we have a game. Don't give a launch date unless you are certain you know that launch date, okay? This is another mistake I have made. We announced a launch date, and then we decided to postpone. Very dangerous. People do not like this. We actually made the right decision because we announced the launch date before the Nintendo Switch came out, and then the Nintendo Switch came out, and we went, yeah, we want some of that Nintendo love. And it worked out very well for us. But be very careful with that because this can backfire a lot. So do not announce a launch date until you know that you've got that launch date. You need another trailer, you need another press release. So your press release needs to give obviously the date, the time, but also needs to give more details. So remember this. Don't give away everything in the first point. Don't lay out your life story in the first press release. You have to keep information back. You have to hold back, and you have to give it out at certain times. And at this point, you need to start doing your influencer outreach as well. If you haven't already started it, at this point, you need to be doing influencer outreach. 6 weeks before launch, you need to launch the press release embargoed. And then on the actual launch day, you need to have, again, another trailer and more information, okay?
Can you explain a bit more about embargo? Because this is a term that we don't
Okay,
know.
so embargo is basically you send an email to a press organization saying, here is a copy of my game for review, do not release the review until X date. Because you don't want if you launch your game, so if you give press your game 6 weeks in advance, you don't want review 3 days, review 2 days, review 3 days, review 4 days, review, because it just spreads it out too much. Because what you need is one big punch. So you want to make sure that all of those reviews are coming out at the same time. So that's what embargoes allow you to do. And by and large, press quite like embargoes that are given ahead because it gives them time. Because right now, that's the big problem for games journalists, is just that there are so many games. So the more time you give them, the more likely you are to actually get coverage. One note, influencers are really bad with embargoes. Really bad with embargoes. So it's a good idea to maybe do the press and then 2 weeks before launch release to influencers. Because influencers get far too excited. And usually don't have the same kind of professional training that a games journalist will have. Okay, what about community? Before you do anything, you need to get your community stuff prepared. Like, I have genuinely seen on multiple occasions people doing all of this, all of their marketing stuff, and then launching Facebook, Twitter, and things 2 weeks before their games come out. This is craziness. Do you guys know what a market funnel is? So a funnel is, I don't have anywhere to draw, do I? So imagine that you are trying to get water from a big thing into a little thing, and you are pouring it. Okay? So you use a funnel, right? So what you want to do is you want to structure your marketing and community plan like a funnel. Every time you do an announcement or do a release, you need to pick one place where you want all of those interested people to end up. So, for example, it used to be Facebook, like I said. That used to be, when I first got into the business, that's where everybody wanted everyone to be. You put them to Facebook. But then Facebook changed its monetization structure, and even if people like your page, there's no guarantee they will see your post. So suddenly Facebook became not very useful. So what we have now is we have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of these things, but all of those things are designed to push people towards the Discord. So when we pour out the news, people get caught in our social media. So we get X number of people, X number of people, X number of people in our social media, and then the really committed people, the ones who really like the game, go into our Discord. Because that's how we've got it set up. We have links to the Discord and all of those things, okay? And then you end up with, for every announcement, a few hundred people who really fucking like your game. Who have gone through a couple of stages to get there. They're excited to talk to the developers. They're committed to the idea. And those people are so important. So yeah, like I said, so you need to have your social media prepared. Before you do any announcements, before you release a screenshot, before you send a message to anyone, you need to have social media, community stuff set up. Pick a home for your community, okay? If you're not going to use Discord, find something else, but commit to it, okay? Some people still use forums, you know, it's not a bad idea, it's just a pain in the ass. And get some moderators. And do not forget about time zones. I remember when me and Vlad, we first opened our Discord, and we were like, oh, this is great, this is great. Me and Vlad will monitor it all day, it's going to be perfect. We live in Asia. So when all the Americans wake up, and you get some horrible, horrible American boy who wants to post Nazi memes and pornography in your Discord, there's no one there to stop them. So make sure that you're thinking like, okay, have somebody in that community promoted. If you manage to get 100 people in your Discord, you have 3 or 4 people who are desperate to be moderators, who are desperate to get involved. Say, I will give you free copies of all of our games for as long as you are a moderator. Happy. Happy. Happy, happy people. Make sure you include your community in all press releases. Most press will not say, go to the Discord, or go to this, or go to that. But some will. And it has a massive impact. I think we had a rock, paper, shotgun article once that included a link to our Discord, and suddenly our Discord grew by like 400 people. Just boom. Exciting. Run competitions. Do things to interact with your community. So in the Another Indie server right now, we do Netflix movie night, where we just say, at this time, we will be watching this movie. Join us. And so people who are bored, because they must be very bored, will say, cool. And so we said, so last weekend, me, Vlad, and about 30 people from our Discord, we watched Hellraiser. And just chatted like, oh, he's gonna kill her, oh, she's dead. And people love it, you know? Everyone's sharing Hellraiser memes, everybody's chatting, and it just gives that community that little bit more of, we're not just here to sell you shit. Obviously, in the end, you want your community to be a part of your sales strategy, but you also want it to be an actual community. Otherwise, people get bored very, very quickly. So yeah, we do that, and we also do competitions. We do loads of competitions. You know the Humble subscription? You pay like, what is it, like $15 a month, and you get access to games every month, like Steam keys.
So Humble 的月费制付费方式。
Yeah, well, he said. We do that, and we have one just for our Discord. So what we do is we get all of those keys every month, and we run competitions for them. It's super cheap. But you then have 2 or 3 competitions a week, no problem, less than $20 a month. Bargain. So, and it's a good way to just get people interacting, and you do it so the way that we do it is, we have a level up system in our Discord. So the more that you chat, the more that you post, the more that you interact, the higher your level goes. And the higher your level is, the more likely you are to win prizes. So people talk and interact because there's extra motivation. So do things like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of give you like an overview of a game launch, which is a little bit boring. I apologize in advance. So let's say the launch date for Iain's Ultimate Indie is on July 1st. Oh no, we cut off a little bit. No, it's okay. I can read it to you. It'll be fine. This is like a breakdown of what you need to do in those months before you launch your game. So this is 6 months, okay? And 6 months sounds like a long time, right? When you think like, oh, 6 months is nothing in game dev. 6 months is absolutely nothing. It's over like this. So if you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to launch my game in Q3 in 2019, May 20. You've got 3 months to get all of this prepared, and that's quite scary. So in January, you're launching in July. In January, you need to have prepared community and social media, minimal posting, prepare the assets you will need for the launch announcement, prepare the store page assets. If you're launching on Steam, you want to make sure that your store page is ready the minute that you do your launch announcement, because you want to get those wish lists, because that's how you get the algorithm to love you. And you need assets and announcement trailer, okay? That's month 1. Month 2, you need to announce the game, kick off social media, begin funneling people towards your HUD, have the store page go live for wishlisting, release the demo for press and influencers. 3rd month, follow up with those press and influencers, continue developing your community, pitch news stories, explain why your game is special to people who are interested. Do a giveaway, give restricted access of the game to your community to get that feedback, use your community as beta testers. Prepare press releases and launch day's announcement. May. In May, your game needs to be finished. So if you are launching in July, your game needs to be finished by the second week of May in order to give press that 6 weeks of a glorious, glorious press. So you see how quickly that time disappears, right? Yeah. So in May, the first 2 weeks, you're focusing on finalizing the game, whilst also maintaining community and building up all of that stuff. Also, and then on the July 1st, sorry, so not July 1st, mid-May, you want to announce the launch date. So you say, woo, the game will be coming out July 1st. Send that press release to the press. At the same time, send your embargoed press release. So you basically send 2 press kits at one time. One with this thing saying, hey, the game's coming out on July 1st. Another one with a key to the game, with all the information about the launch, and with the embargo information as well. In June, you're still preparing all of your social media, you're preparing the launch date stuff, and you're updating all of the bugs that you will still be finding, because you will still be finding bugs at this point. And you pray that everything will go well. And then in July, boom, your game's out. So that's what 6 months looks like. It goes very, 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 very quickly.
Can I
Yes.
just trying to put something into this
Go
perspective
for it.
as well. So, in this like 6 month schedule, I didn't see anything about like playtesting.
Yeah.
So how do you combine those?
So what we do is we do QA in-house, but we use our community. So we have this amazing Discord community that has 3,000 people in it, and of those 3,000 people, we have 100 elite members. You know, they are called we are another indie, so we call it the AI Alliance. Ooh. And those members of the AI Alliance, they are the people that we bring in to test our games and to give us feedback. So we have 100 people, just players. We do QA with like external groups as well to make sure that we do that. But yeah, playtesting is hugely important. I just left it off this one because you all know about QA. Did you have any other questions? Or something?
Yeah, just that. Yeah.
Just that one. Cool. So yeah, do test your game. Don't forget that. Yeah. It will. And bearing in mind that. Did I just hear a cat? Or am I
No, the chair.
It's just a chair. I was like, who brought a fucking cat? And bearing in mind that all of this information that I've just given you here is for launching on PC only. If you want to launch on console, everything needs to be done. The game needs to be done 2 or 3 months earlier than this, because you have to get through lock check and things like that. So you need to be factoring all of this in and putting this all together. So if you want to make it even more complicated, add a console. That's what we did with Sinner. We were like, we'll do Xbox and Switch and PlayStation. It'll be easy. And then poor Frank nearly died. If you think I look tired, look at Frank. So, hot tips. Be quiet about your game until you are ready to go. Not go as in sell your game, but be quiet until you are, you have this 6 month cycle, okay? If you are talking about your game years before your game will come out, people will forget. People have a short memory these days. There are so many good games. So if you're talking about your game years before it comes out, this is probably going to bite you in the ass, because people will lose their excitement. You need to keep that excitement going. In my experience, the thing that always goes wrong is the development stuff, because developers are very optimistic. Developers go, I will definitely definitely have this finished in 2 weeks. No problem. And then 2 weeks later, big problem. So make sure that you're factoring in time for everything to go wrong. Just speaking to Ed a moment ago, and he was like saying, every time you do it, factor in 50% extra time. And I would say that is conservative. Like,
Usually it's like
twice.
Yeah.
That's what I would always say. Is
That's if you got a budget though.
yeah. If you've got a budget,
No one ever has budget for that.
no one ever has a budget. I know. But make sure that you're factoring in the fact that something will go wrong, because it will. 100%. I have never seen a game where something hasn't gone wrong at some point. So yeah, nothing ever goes exactly according to plan, so schedule some flexibility. Do not screw up your launch date. Your launch date, once you announce it to the public, if you mess it up, people do not forgive and they do not forget. Especially on Steam. Like, Steam community is
Toxic.
There's a video camera, so I'm not going to say that. But the Steam community is definitely a tricky place to navigate, and consumers on the Steam platform have a very high opinion of what they deserve, and you have to be very careful with that. Because the last thing you want to do is to launch with controversy already. I know developers who postponed their launch date by a week or 2 weeks and got review bombed on launch. It's a sad and ugly situation, but it happens, and you need to be prepared for it. Be realistic. What I will say is, if you have a 2-year development schedule, don't copy what's popular now. Because what's popular right now will not be popular in 2 years. You try selling a battle royale game in 2 years. Like, the market is going to be absolutely flooded with them by people who can put them out way faster than you can. So if your goal is to do an indie battle royale, you need to have a 6-month turnaround time, or you need to look for a different idea. Otherwise, you're just going to run out of space in the market. And watch the market. If you see things going in a particular direction, do not be afraid to update your game. Have any of you seen a video game called Not Tonight? You obviously know it because you're British. Okay, so Not Tonight was originally a bouncer simulator. So it was about nightclubs, and it was about a bouncer who would let you into nightclubs or not let you into nightclubs. Okay? Then in the UK, Brexit happened. And they changed the whole game to be about Brexit. After Brexit, it'll be the end of the world, and this is a bartender, this is a bouncer who is kind of guarding these bars at the end of the world. And everybody fucking loved it. Like, people bought so many copies of it. Like, that game is making bank because they noticed that there was this place in the market, and they knew, like, hey, in order to do this, all we need to do is just redo our art assets. It's a pain in the arse, but we can redo our art assets and we can capture this moment. Like, you know what I mean? We can be relevant, and being relevant and on time is so hard. So be aware, watch the market, figure out what's going on, If you are releasing a game about saving a princess, you are fucking mad. Okay? Because that ship has sailed. Everyone is sick of this dynamic. If you are releasing a game about a heroic, strong man doing something for a girl, fucking watch the news. Like, read some games journalism. See what people are actually writing about, what people are getting excited about. It's not that, okay? And the amount of time that I spend with developers who have got good games with just a terrible concept behind it is unbelievably common. Find a niche or find something that is like in the zeitgeist, in now, and go for it.
I just added the Mandarin comment， 就是风向要对，做游戏要看风向。 就是刚刚这段全部的，我觉得浓缩可以讲的这一句话。对。
What he said. And actually, that's it. I'm done. So, does anybody have any questions? I like questions.
About getting team form and all the sites or indies should follow, other than Otaku and Kama Sutra and what other sites do you recommend? We stay in touch with what's going on in the world.
Yeah. So I mean, for staying in touch, you know the best place to stay in touch with what's going on in the world is Twitter. And I know that Twitter is an absolute nightmare. It is a hell site. But people talk on Twitter. If you are following all of the game developers on Twitter, that's what I did. So I started up a Twitter like 4 years ago, and I just followed every game developer I could think of and every games journalist I could think of. I just went through a list, I went through every website and I followed them all. And now, if you scroll through it, you get a really good idea of what people are writing about. So right now, people are really interested in games that have social commentary. People are really interested in games that have, that are sort of doing something new with the genre. Not necessarily completely different styles of game, but games that have some different content, if you get what I mean. So what we are doing, so one of the games that we just signed in the last couple of weeks is a 2D platforming game about a young girl going on an adventure in the local culture that she's from. So the game developer is Southeast Asian, so it's all about like Southeast Asian culture and mythology, okay? And we're pretty confident that's going to hit some nerves. We're pretty confident that we're going to get some resonance just because it's like, it's not a crazy new type of game, but we've put in this extra content and story and lore that people will find interesting. Because a lot of Americans don't know anything about Southeast Asian mythology. So that type of stuff is cool. Does that help answer?
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions? Come on.有问题吗？
我这边来加码一下好了，就是那个等一下如果有提问的人可以来找我这边登记，我这边有三组前几天才发售的，就是 Papers Please 那个作者他后来发的新游戏的 key 或三组 key， 对，所以就是
bribery 有 corruption。
有提问的人等一下可以来找我拿 key。
I have another question.
You can ask as many as you like.
I'm the only one, so I have monopoly. But I was wondering, don't you feel it's like nowadays press is less and less important and community is taking over because nobody really pay any attention to what those journalists are saying, and maybe in 3, 4, 5 years, community would be all like Discord and other means.
You are 100% correct. So with our most recent game that launched, Sinner, if you actually look at the reviews, they're not that good. We got about 6 out of 10 is our average score for Sinner, which is not terrible, but it's not great either. But our sales are pretty good. And our sales are pretty good because we have a really, really passionate community that's gone out there and they've told their friends and they've pushed their favorite streamers and their favorite streamers played it and the streamers like it because they're in that type of community. And yeah, so you are 100% correct. I suspect that within the next kind of few years we're going to see games journalism become more and more niche. So it'll still have a place, it'll always have like a place in the same way that like book critics have a place. You know what I mean? Like, I read book critics because I'm a fucking nerd, but it's certainly not the most common way to learn about books.
What do you think about the multi-tiered thing? Like, the first layer is always about getting the words out first. Like, people may not like your game or they may not buy your game on site.
Yeah.
Like maybe they read about it from some Facebook pages or some bloggers or other journalists. But then you try to get the awareness out, and then some people who are interested will try to dig dig into more information
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah, that's basically the funnel, right?
Yeah.
So it's like so for me, every single thing that we do now, the end result is to get them in my Discord. Like everything I do is to get them in one place.
How do you build that community? Like, if journalists aren't gonna write about your game, like, how do you, like, you can't just like go post on Reddit and say, oh, this is my, I mean, you kind of
You can,
but
um,
it's like, you know, you've got to check with the moderators to make sure it's okay to promote your thing and whatever.
yeah, I'll be sneaky. Sneaky's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
you're just polite about it.
Yeah, politely
But
sneaky.
like, have you got any other advice for like getting those people in the
So
funnel?
So my number one advice is wherever you are, find the gamers here. Like, for example, like if you're in, like Taiwan has a fucking amazing gaming community. Like, actually crazy passionate gaming community and very supportive. So if you can tap into the Taiwanese gaming community, you already have a head start. So if you live in a city where you have, say, gamer meetups and gamer things, just use your phone. Go on that meetup app, look at the game stuff, go to those people, get them to play your games, get them to sign up for your Discord. That's the start. I mean, once you've got 100 people, you have a start, and you can get 100. If your game is good and you are going out there, you can get 100 people, no problem. And once you get 100 people, you can start going further. And then when you're talking with publishers and you're talking with other people and they're saying, well, what's the interest like? You can say, hey, I've got this Discord. It's not big, but look at how crazy passionate these people are. And I've got zero marketing budget, but I've got 100 people who are loving my game already. That has weight. That has weight.
Do you, oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. So do you see? I just want to follow up on a question because do you see like because you know like YouTubers or like streamers, usually you have to unless your name already known. Otherwise, you usually have to start pretty small. Like you get a few like maybe a few streamers that's pretty light on content. They don't have many things to talk about, but you get the smaller ones interested, these guys interested, and then some of the bigger, like big guns will come later. It's okay, people are actually reporting or like doing like YouTube streams or Twitch streams about this game, and then maybe I can like I see the interest there, so I'll try to follow up this smaller streamer.
Yeah.
So like this kind of progression, do you see that in press as well? Like, are there any?
Not in press. In streamers, definitely.
Yeah.
Like in streamers, like if you get like enough like smaller streamers playing your game, then medium streamers play your game, and then enough medium streamers play your game, then bigger streamers play your game.
Mm-hmm.
In press, I don't see that.
Okay.
It tends to be the other way around. That like you hit the top and it filters down, or you just stay at the bottom.
I see.
I say this from experience of being one of those guys at the bottom. I don't think press is the same way. But what I will say is like, there's almost no influencer too small. So one of the things that we did, I think, very effectively was we targeted influencers who had like 1,000 followers or less, like on their given platforms. And we hit them hard, and we're like, hey, come join the Discord, hey, join in the thing, join our creator lounge, join our people doing this, that, and the other. Those people got involved, those people were super passionate, and it had the knock-on effect. So even with the Sinner launch, where we had the big Dark Souls streamers playing Sinner, we also went into all of the smaller lounges with like 70 people watching, or 80 people watching, or 30 people watching, and just said, hey man, thanks for playing our game. If you've got any questions, you can follow up here, or you can join the Discord. And we got loads of people joining our Discord from just that little message, just sort of like thanking people for their interest, interacting with people. It makes a big difference. Like I said, if you want to like if you want to build a community, Twitter's a really good place to start to like figure out what's going on, and a good place to reach out to people directly, and put them somewhere. Like I always recommend Discord because I fucking love Discord, but they also just gave me a shitload of money, so I'm very biased. I really strongly recommend Discord. I can't think of another platform that works as well.
Speaking about Discord, nowadays there's new upcoming stores besides Steam, like Discord.
I know, that's how I got my money. So
there's GOG, there's the Congregate guys, there's Facebook has their desktop client.
Yeah.
Can you give us any tips or advice how to navigate those?
Get money. If your game, if somebody passionately wants your game, then they need to pay for it. And if you can get some kind of exclusivity deal, do it, because guaranteed money in 2018 is just unbelievably important. But none of these stores have even a fraction of the impact of Steam. Like, I think that the biggest one is GOG, which is like, what, 4%, 5% of Steam? Itch is after that with 2 to 3%. Discord's not even on the map yet. So, expending time, energy, and resources on these other stores, it's tough to say it's worth your time unless they're offering something. And never, ever, 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 ever fall for people saying, I offer you exposure. Because it's the most common thing that they'll say.
For exposure.
Yeah, they'll say, give us your game on launch, do all this stuff, and it's always a hassle. Because everyone's got their own tax shit, and everyone's got their own paperwork, and then you need to put someone in charge of it. Look how tired Frank is. And you get nothing from it. Like, we've done all of these other stores, and our Steam sales will be 5,000, 10,000 a month. These other stores, you put it all together, it's 200, 300 a month. It's just not worth it. And those are with games that do well. With games that don't do well, they're not going to sell anything. They're not going to sell anything. So yeah, my advice to that is, like, if there's a new platform that wants your game, then they need to work for it.
有没有人有关于时程的问题？因为这次的主题其实在讲时程。我想问一个跟时程有关的问题，大家听一下好了。就是 I have a question about this because the theme of this talk basically is about how do you schedule the whole thing, maybe in the last half month.
I would say it's not really so much how to schedule, it's more just a reminder that you have
to do that.
Other things as well as developing your game to do, because I think that's probably the thing that I see kill the most indie games, is just that nobody does anything other than develop their game. And so they're developing, and then they launch it, and then nobody pays any attention, and they go, oh, well that's over then. Like, that's that. And that's tragic. Like, that's really sad.
Yeah, so this brings me to, like, because most of these people here are developers, and your like the schedule you talked about is like looks like it's kind of like they when they're working on their own, the schedule looks like this. But what happens if they work with a publisher like you, or maybe like what kind of completeness they have to be in when they are trying to kind of get a...
I mean, like, for example, like, if you're working with a publisher, then the publisher deals with everything else. Like, that's why you get a publisher. Like, if your publisher isn't dealing with all of the bullshit other than the development that I just described, then you haven't got a good publisher.
In terms of trailers, do you outsource making of trailers? Who are some of the good companies to outsource trailers?
Yeah, we've done a mix. We've done stuff where in-house, depending on the developers and depending on their skill set. So we've had some nice trailers made in-house. We've had one trailer made by a gentleman called Josh. I can't remember his surname. If you reach out to me, I can give it to you. He does very good 2D trailer. Do you know the game That Dragon Cancer? He's the guy that did the trailer for that. You know the trailer that made everyone cry?
Oh.
He did that trailer. So he's a really talented guy, and he did one of our trailers. And for Sinner, we got a guy from Japan called Gavin, and he did our Sinner trailers, which are crazy cinematic. Like, I still don't understand how we afforded him, because he was far too good for our budget. But our Sinner trailers are fucking amazing.
There's a really good guy called Derek Liu.
Yep, I know Eric. Yeah.
Is American, but he's a trailer editor, and he has a newsletter that goes out every Sunday, like with different topics
Yeah.
for editing trailers. So if you want to learn how to do your own trailer, if you can't afford someone else to do it, then
Yes. So Eric Liu, right? Liu. Derek.
yes.
I've met because he's friends with Josh, so I met them both together. Derek Liu, Liu. Yes. We can. I'll put it in the presentation. I'll send the presentation to Josh.
Yes.
Josh. Yeah. Anyone else?
Here.
Hey.
Yeah, it's from
A new one.
One stream. Yeah. It asked, do you have any suggestion for PC game that already launched for a year? The major focus will be ads or community or something else.
I mean, if you've already launched your game for a year, it's an uphill struggle to do anything with media. Like, you are going to struggle really hard to get media attention unless you do something crazy. Like, unless you have some update that, like, blows everybody away. But if you are building a community, then absolutely. Like go out, get that community. Like, go on Twitter. Start pinging people. Hey, I liked your game. My game is similar. See what happens. Start a conversation with other developers. Get them interested. And just start building that community. It's totally possible to build a community based around an older game, especially if you're fine with essentially giving away copies of that game for free. I know it's always painful to do, but I assure you that giving away copies of your game for free to build a community will benefit you more in the long run than selling your game for 25 cents on a bundle. So if you have the choice between doing those two things, build your community. No problem.
We all know that Steam has some big sales, like winter sales or summer sales. Should we, when we decide our launch day, should we avoid this, like
Like,
month?
yes.
Yes.
Avoid it like a high-speed bus. Like, yeah, if you're launching your game anywhere close to the summer, winter, or occasionally spring, when they do their spring sale occasionally, then you're fucked. Like, there's just no way that you will get any attention because everybody's buying games for $2. It's one of the reasons why I have become most sort of unhappy with Steam is the discount culture. I think discount culture on Steam has had a really detrimental effect, and that's a worry.
How long should we before
Separate the.
I would say like at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks. 3 to 4 would be better.
Okay, about the launch day, I want to follow up the launch day
Go
question
for it.
because nowadays they say there are already like no good launch date in a whole year. Like no matter on what day you launch, on what weekend, on what vacation, it's just bad. But there are like different levels of bad. So
Yeah, they're definitely like.
so
And don't launch on Christmas. That'd be a bad idea. 25th of December, bad launch day.
So, like, in your experience, do you have, some, maybe a few windows per year?
It depends on the title as well, so it's kind of difficult to give like a generic.
I see.
This date is good because it depends what's coming out. So actually, like our Sinner launch date should have been terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like we ended up with this launch date because everything sort of aligned and it ended up. We actually launched Sinner, which is a Souls-like game on Switch the day before Dark Souls came out on Switch. So when I say schedule, we all fuck up scheduling. But we were lucky enough that our community pushed us through. No, there's no good time. I don't think. Like there's no time that you can look at and go, that's a good time.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to put money on a place right now, I'd say Q1 is probably the better time. It used to always be that January, February was considered to be like a bad time to launch games.
Mm-hmm.
But that just means there's not that many games launching in January, February, and that's basically what good means now. Like, when can you launch your game at a time where there's going to be less people launching their games? That's it. So January, February, even early March is probably like my ideal window, but I don't know is my honest answer. Like, it depends on the title, depends what else is coming out. There's a lot of factors.
How do you follow up, some of the, like, I want to avoid in conflict with some type of games that, they have super big title that's coming out maybe on one weekend. How do you,
You know something, sometimes it can't be avoided. Like, sometimes you have the perfect launch day and you've got everything set up, and then you just get fucked by a surprise launch, or the week before somebody changes it. This happened with us. So we had a game that launched, and on the same day that we launched our game, which was like a cute indie game, Mike Bithell launched his surprise indie game that everyone was like, "Oh my god, Mike Bithell launched a new game! Woo!" So my game just like went from the rankings from like, "Woo!" I sent him a very, very bitter tweet. Mike, give me some notice, you bastard. But yeah, it happens. Like that is the one thing that I always say to developers: prepare to fail. I know that's a horrible thing to hear, but if you get yourself in a situation where your life is going to be destroyed by making your game, stop making your game. Go get a job. Like, go work in 7-Eleven. Like, don't get yourself in debt. Don't mortgage your house. Don't get money from your parents that you can't pay back. All of this stuff is a big no-no. Right now, most games do not make money. That's a fact. So you have to factor it in. If you can't factor it in, don't. The days of, give it a go, it'll be fine, are over.
it's long over
Yeah.
for a very long time?
Yeah. Especially, I mean, like, Steam has been over since Greenlight came out.
Yeah.
Like, but people just didn't realise for like 4 years. Like, everyone's like, oh, everyone's making money, right? No, we're all poor. No, everyone's starving. So that's a happy thing to think about.
So I have one last question about scheduling, because during the final preparation, like your launch or like the final stretch of your development, you are also considering going to shows.
Yes.
Conferences or like festivals,
Yeah.
shows. So how do you kind of factor that into?
So the way I know that for me it's a good idea to go to shows, because I've been building those relationships for the last 4 years by going every year to all of these shows, and because I've built those relationships, so for example, with Sinner, we did the Discord deal, and we did Xbox Games Pass. I can't tell you how much money we made off that, but we broke even on Sinner before we sold a copy. And I got those deals because I went to those shows, I shook those hands, I met those people. I got my first dev kit because at GDC I got drunk and I sat on somebody from Nintendo. That's how I got my first Nintendo dev kit. I sat on the European director of Nintendo. And he was like sitting on a man and went, excuse me, I went, whoa! That's how I got my Nintendo Switch dev kit.
Don't do
Professional. Pro over here, guys. So yeah, for me as a publisher, it's also good because I always have new stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always going there with fresh stuff, with new things to talk about. As developers, individual developers, I think showcasing is really, really risky. It's so expensive and it takes so long to build those connections. Like, the only reason why I was able to build those connections is because I did GDC, I did PAX East, I did PAX West, I did PAX Australia, I did anything else. I did EGX in the UK, I did Rezzed in the UK. You know, I basically spent 6 months traveling for 2 years, 3 years. God, 3 years. That was a long 3 years. Most of you can't do that. Like, Most of you don't want to do that. It's horrible. You smell really bad most of the time. It's gross. So like so for me it made sense, but for individual developers, it's dangerous. Like you can very easily spend crazy amounts of money. I mean, going to America is expensive. The flights are expensive. Staying there is expensive. Eating there is expensive. I mean, you guys are lucky because you guys don't need a visa. But I mean, like for like, you know, most of people in this part of the world, like even getting a visa is expensive. So it's tough for me to say it's a good idea. Like I always say, if you have the resources and it's not going to kill you, do it, because the connections that you make are awesome. But if you're on a budget and you're kind of weighing between like, oh well, do I spend my money on developing the game and building the community and doing all the stuff I mentioned, or going to GDC, fucking stay home. Watch that shit on YouTube. You know, the information doesn't get bad because you get it a few months later, and someone's always got a vault password if you ask nicely. So yeah, don't kill yourself to do stuff like that. It's fun. Every developer should do it once as an experience. It's like going to Mecca, but you shouldn't be doing it if it's gonna hurt you.
It's like if you have a very clear idea about why you are doing this trip.
Yeah, exactly. So like for us, like with some of our games now, we're helping them come with us, you know. So we're going to split the costs, and we're going to we'll pay for the booth. You know what I mean? So suddenly, all the developer's paying for is their accommodation and their food. Hooray! Bargain! Good job. But if you're not in that situation, you're paying for everything on your own. Holy shit, it's expensive. Like we spend $20,000 to $40,000 a year on showcasing. It's a lot of money. So yeah.
还有其他问题吗？
Anyone? Questions?
因为时间也差不多，我想等一下如果大家有想到其他问题的话，可以私下再来前面跟讲者讨论。
My Twitter is... I've lost it. There we go. My Twitter is there, @memnock87. Follow me. I make terrible jokes, I post pictures of my dogs, and I talk about video games. And if you have any questions at all, you can always contact me. You can DM me. My DMs are open, so if you don't want to contact me in public, you don't have to. And I just realised I didn't put the Discord link up there. Amazing. Amazing. Let's fix that. There we go. And just underneath my Twitter handle is the Discord link. So it's discord.gg/AI. And you should definitely come and join my community and become part of my, not cult, a group of friendship. But yeah. Yeah, and any questions, anything at all, you can always contact me. I am very keen on supporting Taiwanese development and developers, so just let me know, okay? Cool. Are we done?
OK， 那我们掌声再感谢一次Iain。